Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Villa Fella podcast. As always, I am your host and Wiseman solo again for this episode, bringing you guys the preview for this Sunday's 4:30 kickoff at Elland Road with Leeds United. The international break is done. It was a very interesting international break, I should say. You know me, long-time listener to the Villa Filler podcast will know that I'm a fan of the international break, and I know not a lot of people are, but I thought this one was pretty interesting, the last international break before the World Cup. Unfortunately, not too many Villa boys out on the international stage this time, but don't worry, they're all coming back. Well, not all of them, and that's one of the things we're going to discuss for this Sunday's game. Really excited to bring you this preview, guys, but before we get into all of that, I have to bring you a word from today's video sponsor. As always, it is the wonderful OneFootball. It is the must-have app for any football fan anywhere in the world. We can't recommend it enough. It's the ultimate football media platform. News, features, scores, stats. You can watch live games in app, so you can watch Serie A this season. There's a bunch of other leagues across Europe which you guys can watch completely free of charge. There's match highlights on there. You can follow certain teams to get news straight to your phone as soon as it breaks. Honestly, guys, we can't recommend it enough. It's what powers the Villa Filler podcast. It's where we get all of our stats, all of our data, all of our news. Make sure you hit the link in the description. Download OneFootball. It helps out the Villa Filler more than you can know, and it will help you guys out too. One of the things that it actually gave me this morning was news that apparently we missed out on a deal to send Morgan Sanson to Feyenoord in the summer window by just 15 minutes. We missed the transfer deadline by just 15 minutes trying to get that move done. That's according to L'Equipe this morning. So that's an interesting one that I didn't know, but that's being broken in France this morning. I got it there. So yeah, news to me, news to you guys too. So make sure you download OneFootball. Now, the preview. It's been a bit of a tricky period for Villa in terms of the injuries and stuff like that, isn't it? Obviously, we'll be out definitely without the likes of Diego Costa and Diego Carlos, I should say, and Boubacar Kamara, who have got pretty long-term injuries, it seems. It looks like we'll be without Matty Cash as well. And I thought that given that he didn't go away with Poland and that decision was made quite early on in September, I thought that we'd have a chance of getting him back fit for this game. But according to Ashley Priest, it looks like he's set to miss this one as well. So it remains to be seen sort of how long Matty Cash will be out for. Obviously, I'm sure he'd like to, on a personal level, be back fit for the game against Forest and stuff like that. So we'll have to see on that one. That's our next game. That's on the 10th. So he's got an 8-day period following this Sunday's game, if he does miss it, to be fit for that Monday night game under the lights in Nottingham. But looking at this one against Leeds, it's a place where it always feels like a tricky place to go to, and Leeds have made it difficult for a lot of teams in recent years. But we've actually got a pretty happy record against Leeds, especially at Elland Road in the Premier League. Leeds have actually just won one of their last 10 Premier League home games against us at Elland Road. You have to go back to 02-03 for the last time they beat us in the Prem at their home ground. And so it's a place where, obviously, I know a lot of that there's a big asterisk next to that because they weren't in the Premier League for a lot of that. But it's a place where in recent years, we've actually gone and got some good results, perhaps more so than we have done in a long time. You know, we've won our last 2 away league games away against Leeds. That's as many as we had in our previous 17 visits to Elland Road. So in recent years, we've made it a place where we're actually pretty comfortable in going to go and get a win. However, the big caveat is that we've never won 3 in a row at Elland Road before, not in our history. So if we can get a result this Sunday, which I don't think is out of the question, we'd be making history, which is always quite nice. We've picked up 4 points from our last 2 league games. Obviously, we got that draw against Manchester City, and then the win against Southampton. That's actually 1 more point than we got in our first 5 games of this season, where we won 1 and lost 4. We're also going for consecutive clean sheets in this game against Leeds, following that 1-0 win against Southampton. That would be the first time we'd done that since April. So there's a lot of firsts going on around these fixtures. And I think the thing is with this Leeds game is that it's going to regardless of how we choose to line up, it's going to be a pretty new look Villa side. We're going to have to experiment a lot. I think the main talking point is going to be who we slot in for the guys that have got these injuries. You imagine, I saw Ludwig talking over the international break that he's going to step in for Luca Dean, given that, he's another guy that's out. I don't think I mentioned it with the South podcast, but obviously Luca Dean is out as well. It looks like he's got some sort of minor fracture in his ankle. So it'd be really interesting to see when he comes back. So it looks like Ludwig is going to slide in at left back. It's not an easy place to make your debut, but I mean, I suppose we would have liked it to have been a home game. But no one game is really any easier than any other in the Premier League. And I think he's been brought in as a backup. And sometimes as a backup, these are the duties you've got to fulfill. Sometimes you've got to step in these difficult moments. It was a similar story for Robin Olsen when he came in for Emi Martinez against Man City on the last day of the season. Sometimes when you're playing second fiddle, these are the situations in which you encounter and the ones you've got to deal with. So it looks like he'll come in at left back. And I'm excited to see Augustinson. I've spoken with Dan before about how we perhaps feel that he's been written off before he's even kicked the ball. And I don't like that. Obviously, he's a very competent player. He's come from a very reputable club in Sevilla. And he's had a very established career, both, in the club scene and internationally. So I'm really looking forward to see just what he can bring to us down that left-hand side. And you imagine he'll slot in there. On the right, again, I think it'll be Ashley Young, which obviously that performance against Man City, I think really encouraged people. And so, I think in a game against Elland Road, Leeds, Elland Road, where inevitably the game can become quite transitional, quite fast-paced, quite intense, especially between these two teams, because obviously there's a bit of a needle in there. It'll be interesting to see how he fares, and I think that experience and that nous might be really important. Obviously, he's not going to provide perhaps as much going forward as Matty Cash did, but it's probably more important that we focus on the defensive side of things for this game, because you don't want to get pulled into that tug of war, that counter-attacking game where it's end-to-end, because those are the situations which Jesse Marsh's high-pressing, high-intensity sides will often come out on top, and they have a lot of players who are quick and will hurt you on the counter. One of which is probably the danger man that I'm going to pick out is Luis Sinisterra, who scored in each of his first 3 starts for Leeds in all competitions this season. He's going for a record, actually, himself. He's looking to become only the second player in Leeds' history to score in his first 4 starts after Charlie Keatley in 1928, which is quite remarkable, really. And he really thrives on this high-pressure, high-turnover game that Leeds play. Only Brentford this season have scored more goals from high turnovers in the Premier League this season than Leeds, with 3. And so it's really interesting to see how we step up against that. We know how Jesse Marsh likes to play. I think he's a good manager. I think he'll do well at Leeds. I think he's had a very difficult job stepping in for Marcelo Bielsa, but ultimately I think he's done quite well. I think he's made some good signings, obviously. He'll really look to play on that Red Bull theme, and I don't think we'll see the last of Leeds signings coming from the Red Bull program, be that New York, Salzburg, or Leipzig. So I think he's done well, but what we need to do is make sure that we don't get pulled into that tug of war, and that's where I don't actually think the attritional play that's come to sort of define the recent Steven Gerrard era might not be the worst thing. Because I think we need to try and play this game on our terms, and I don't think we need to play into Leeds' hands. Obviously, we got a fantastic result away at Elland Road not too long ago. You think that's that amazing Callum Chambers goal. Coutinho scored in that game as well. He's got 4 goal involvements actually in his 2 Premier League games against Leeds, both home and away. He was absolutely fantastic against Leeds last season. He could be the first Villa player actually since John Carew against Stoke back in December 2009 to score in each of his first 3 opponents against an opponent in the Premier League for Aston Villa. So here's hoping Hayfield. And it bodes well because he played really well against Southampton. Obviously, he wasn't included in the Seleção squad, and I think that's very important to him. I think that is ultimately the backbone of his move to Aston Villa. I think we coaxed him away from saying, look, come to the Premier League, rediscover your form, step away from Barcelona, get out of the shadows, come back into the limelight. And Tite's been very clear. I said in the last podcast that I don't think Coutinho has to be playing particularly well. I don't think he has to be playing as well as other Brazilian players are out on the continent to make that World Cup squad. And this is the first time he's missed a Brazil squad in 11 months. And I think that put a real bee in his bonnet. He played with a hunger in his belly. He seemed to play with a bit more tenacity against Southampton. And look, it wasn't a masterclass. It wasn't even the best performance we've seen him put in against Southampton in a Villa shirt. But it was a lot better and it was encouraging. And he was our best attacking player in that game, without a doubt. I think it bodes well that, obviously he's had a lot of luck against Leeds. He was absolutely magnificent, both home and away last year, as I said. So hopefully he can put in a similar performance this time, because he could be absolutely crucial to us going and getting a result, because he is so composed and he can be so precise. And I think it's just about keeping our heads. And I think it's about making sure that we play a game, as I said, on our own terms, on our basis, that we don't step into Leeds' hands. And look, I mean, Leeds have picked up some good results this season. Obviously, they very much contributed, I imagine, to the Chelsea decision to sack Thomas Tuchel when they ran riot, really. That doesn't even feel too long ago. But look, they're not coming into this game. I think they're one of the clubs that would have been glad for an international break, because their last game, they conceded 5 against Brentford. Game before that was a 1-1 with Everton, before they lost to Brighton. And then they had that win. Can you believe that's the 21st of August, that 3-0 Leeds win against Chelsea? That's the last time they picked up 3 points in the Premier League anyway. At Elland Road, 3 days later, they beat Barnsley in the League Cup. So they're not in scintillating form. As I said, I think they will have been glad of that international break. It's given them a chance to sort of recuperate. They do sit 11th in the table, so it's not all doom and gloom. They're 1 point ahead of us, despite being, I think, 4 places higher than us in the league. But yeah, I mean, it'd be really interesting to see sort of how they line up, really. We know that Sinistero and the like have gone away. They've played against Colombia. He scored a brace against Mexico. So, as I said, he really is the danger man. And we have to make sure that we keep him quiet, because he's not someone that will dominate a game, so to speak, but what he's a fantastic one-on-one threat, and he can produce moments of magic, and he can do things which are as good as anybody else in this league, really. He's in certain moments, he's so explosive, he's spectacular to watch, and he's really endeared himself to Leeds. So we'll have to do a good job of keeping him quiet. That's one of Ashley Young's biggest jobs, actually, is making sure that if Sinistero does start on the left, and he's capable of starting on both sides, but if he does come in off that left-hand side, that we've got Young there, and if it's Konsa that's playing next to him, those two are going to have to do a really good job of keeping him quiet. But we've dealt with threats from Leeds before, and we've done that well. And we've proved capable of, especially against Manchester City, that playing against the very best we can keep them pretty quiet. So here's hoping. In terms of the Villa, as I said, I think it will be Young and Augustinson in the fullback spots. It'd be interesting who starts in DM. Let me know, actually, if you guys have any thoughts, post them down below. Luis seems like the obvious one, but I don't know. I've got a sneaky feeling that we might see Leander Dendoncker in this game. I think that sort of his stature and his physical presence could be really useful in helping us establish some kind of grip on that game, especially in midfield, where these games are ultimately won and lost. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think Coutinho definitely will start, given his performance against Southampton and his form against Leeds. It looks like it will be Ollie Watkins, but obviously Bailey really didn't get it going against Southampton. So who knows, maybe there's a return in there for Emi Buendia. It'll be really interesting, guys. I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, as always, I'll be on hand to bring you the review. Again, it'll be me going solo for that one. So I do apologize. Dan is having the best time out in Orlando, dodging the hurricane. Don't you worry, he's all safe and well. I saw some people sending him some more wishes given the weather situation out there, but he's absolutely fine. Don't you worry. And then he'll be back soon. But yeah, for the moment, it's now me and me only. And so for that reason, I'm very grateful for you guys for listening. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, drop me a comment. down below on anything to do with this game. I'd love to have that conversation with you, and make sure you download One Football, as I said at the top of the podcast. It's a fantastic platform. It helps me out more than you can imagine. And trust me, I can't endorse it enough. You guys will absolutely love it. So make sure you hit that link in the description, get that downloaded, and I'll see you on Sunday evening or Monday morning. Depends on how the game goes. But I'll see you shortly after the game for the review of the Villa.